Welcome back to Guess What Day It Is. I'm your host, Bearded Mike. So this is part 2 of our journey through the Atari 2600 six-switcher. Last time we learned a lot of the history about the Atari. We tore into this particular one just to check it out, see if there's anything from a visual standpoint that stuck out. Nothing really looked too terribly bad. Terribly dirty, of course, but you know, after, I don't know, 45 years plus, it's bound to happen. So today we're going to get into some soldering tips. Remember, anytime you're working with solder or soldering, to have a well-ventilated area so that you don't breathe in any of the toxic fumes that come off it. And as always, anytime you're working with electronics, be very careful. Always work on them unplugged. And if you're doing testing, be very careful with that as well. And if you don't know much about electronics, I know this is a show about trying to fix things ourselves. For your own safety, it may be best to take it to a professional and have it looked at. So with all that out of the way, let's get started. I'm really looking forward to getting this board on and installed and getting this up in our living room so we can enjoy it. So let's do this. Let's hammer. It's phone day. Can't get my punch out. Turntable day. Did I not say American word? Okay, so I've got this set up in a jig to make it a little easier for us to desolder. We're doing the big capacitor, which lines up with these two solder points there. We have a couple different options as far as how we can get that solder off. You can use something called solder wick, which is basically a little copper webbing that essentially wicks or soaks up the solder up off of the pad to get it off. So what I'll do is I'll use that for one of them, and then I have this handy dandy solder sucker, Amazon special. It's kind of unique in the fact that it's got the sucker built in. It does have a soldering tip on the end that gets hot, so basically we'll apply that to it. Hopefully I can do it with the way the camera's set up, but we'll do our best with that. And then we'll get this tip cleaned up a little bit too while I'm at it. So this works surprisingly well for the price I paid for it. So when it comes to desoldering, there's a couple different thoughts. You can add a little bit of solder to it to help it start to flow. A lot of times what that does, it just adds a little bit of flux to it. It doesn't necessarily make it any easier to get off or anything of that nature. So what I do is I actually add a little flux to the wick itself. So I've got some liquid flux, just add just a little bit to it, kind of let it soak in. That's going to smoke a little bit. But what the flux does, or the rosin core, is it actually cleans to some degree or prepares the surface to absorb. So pure solder, if you try to glob it on to a component, it's never going to really penetrate. It's just going to turn into a ball and just sit there. The rosin core, the flux, will allow that to flow and attach to what you're actually doing. So I've got my Weller digital soldering station set to 700. So I'm going to do this guy right here. So I'm going to get it to flow a little bit first. Sometimes this older solder actually takes a higher temperature. So we're doing, as you can see, it already pushed the tab through. So that was easy. So I'm gonna pull some of that old solder off with this wick again, just so we have a nice clean pad. You can see it, that wick just soak up that old solder. Now, this will get hot, so be careful if you hold it too tight or too close to it. So you can see we really don't need that solder sucker for this. It just, well, it reattached itself. We'll come back to that one. So we'll go ahead and use it anyway. Let's see if I can't arrange this so that we can get it on camera. One thing I don't like about this thing is I tend to burn myself on this. So what I'm going to do is kind of put it right over the tip there. Happens pretty quick, so I didn't really even get a chance to talk about it. So basically this has a hole in the tip. I usually stick that hole right over the component end there, and then it will start to flow that solder. You push the button, which pulls the plunger up and basically sucks off the solder. So pretty easy. I am going to use the solder wick to pull some of that old solder off on this again. It's good to have good clean contact points for the new solder to come in. So all right, so we should be prepped and ready to go. Now, capacitors can have a polarity. As you can see, the polarity is clearly marked on the capacitor itself. The polarity is also marked on the component, or on the etching. There are times where that is incorrect. So no matter what you do, we always check to see what the actual polarity is of the component. Even if this said positive here, and if it was soldered on backwards, go with the component because it was working, most likely. So that is your guide. Always look at the component first. So we're going to flip this over. We're going to see what that component is like. For those of you looking for a soldering little holder, don't buy this one. It's garbage. I'm just making it work. So So if we look at the component, this is the positive end, which matches up with the plus on the silk screen on the back side. So this is correct on that. So what we're going to do, the arrows are pointing to negative. So we're going to put that through. It's a little tight. So get it close to the board. Okay, you're gonna watch me struggle here getting this thing back in this little fixture. But that's okay, it makes for entertainment. It almost takes like 3 hands to get this thing to work. And I actually had to put a little spacer because this little thumb screw does not tighten very well. So it works. It is what it is. I'm not going to buy a new one. So when soldering a component back in, I do my very best to have the post sticking out straight. A lot of times, to keep the component in, people will bend the tabs over. That makes it very difficult to disassemble in the future. So this, because the legs are a little thicker, this holds in pretty well. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll bend one tab over and hold it, and then apply the solder and get it straight, and then I'll straighten the opposite end and then solder it in. So just one of my little, just the way I do things. So everybody does things differently. Let me know in the comments how you do your soldering. Okay, so the solder I use, 31 thousandths of an inch. It's 60% tin, 40% lead. I buy it in a big roll and then kind of take a little piece off at a time. So you get to a point where you have a little nub of solder, and I try to avoid that by having more kind of a roll in my hand. So when we solder, we apply the heat, we apply the solder, we remove the solder, then remove the heat. So what we do is get the component hot, we add enough solder just to cover what we need to, and then we remove the solder and let the soldering iron make that flow. We can add more. I always like the smaller solder because it allows me to have more control over how much I add. If we thicker solder, we'll just put a glob of solder on there before you know it, and this way I can keep that nice and controlled and not have to worry about it. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to add our heat, remove our solder, remove our iron. We want to make sure that it has covered the whole entire pad, make it as small as possible, and we also want to make sure that there's no porosity in that. We also want to make sure that it's shiny. If a solder joint is not shiny, there's a good chance that it didn't flow properly or didn't adhere to what you're working on. So we're going to do the same thing here. I always like to have a bracing, like to have something to hold my hand on to make sure that I'm steady. So we add our heat, flow our solder, remove our heat. Simple as that. So both of those are good. We'll clean up the flux when we're done with the whole entire board. We take our flush cuts and cut it down as close as possible. I think that just hit the camera. Now, keep track of these things. If you're soldering inside a component or a item, and that component gets shorted because this little guy goes in between two terminals that you don't want him to, that's a bad thing. So anyway, that's how I solder. I'm going to go through the rest of this without boring you to death. And then I'll come back when we solder our new component board that we will get our audio and video out properly. Okay, we're back. So we've got our little daughter board sitting on top of the TIA chip. Now, for orientation and everything, please go to Retro6's YouTube channel to find out exactly how to do this. This is on, works on all models, but just for your own, I won't go over that necessarily. So I don't know if you can see it, but we have these individual pads that have boxes over it. This doesn't really sit super flush, so I'm using this little tiny close pin just for the time being. So I'll probably get two of these pads soldered on, and then I'll take that off so we can finish it. So we're going basically through to the pins. We want to make sure we add plenty of solder to that. So we'll do that one. We'll do this one over here, and that should stabilize the board. Now I can take my Spin off. Yeah, good and stable. Okay. So we've got spin right here. Let's go right on down the line. According to the install video, if you do fill up the ones that don't have a box on it, it's not a big deal. I'm just thinking about future. If I do want to remove this, I don't want to, the less I have to take off, the better. So I'm just going to do the ones that are required. Just like that. So the next step is going to be soldering on the connector itself, which I'm going to tin these real quick while we got it. But I'm actually going to install the wires through the case so that we don't have to worry about running those separately. So we've got those tinned. We've got our wire here. Once again, that's already tinned for us. Might actually end up cleaning the case first because it is gross. So I think that's what we're going to do. So we're going to just going to examine my solder joints here. It looks like we're doing okay. Ends up being a little ball, which once again, the thing I really like about this is just the cleanness of the install. So, and this is the cable. Once again, I'm going to install this through the case so that it is, will this fit through? Let's try this here. It's possible this will fit through there. Nope. Maybe. See if I can get all four of them through. Oh yeah, okay. So we should be fine. What I'm doing off camera is just trying to make sure that they all fit through the hole. So that's great. Would it be a big deal if I had to do it all at one time? Not really. But now I can just get finished up with what I have now instead of having to clean that up. So these are a little long. So I'm going to trim them back just a tad bit. Main thing is we don't want an end to be touching another end. So just trim it back ever so slightly. According to the install, just kind of bundled all the grounds together. We've got 3 ground tabs and 4 ground wires, so we're going to obviously probably have 2 of these sitting on top of each other. So let's see. Let's twist these 2 guys together. This will be our what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder the red one on first, and this will be our anchor point. Having a heck of a time here. Get 2 of the grounds together, and then we'll, once again, I'm going to pull this up so we don't have the weight of the cord pulling on us. These wires are fairly small. Probably should have done the other ones first. 9/17, 2020. So let's do those first. Start composite video. Yeah, I probably should have done that first, but we're making it. Don't do everything perfect, obviously. We're making it. Okay. Going to make that straight now. So you see what I did by starting those back wires on first, kind of put me in a tight spot. Okay. Actually, I'm going to strip this one down a little bit. So we have the ability to twist these 2 together. I'm going to trim that because it's pretty long. One round left. I probably could have made this a little cleaner, but that's okay. We're making it work. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. So what we'll do is we'll get this mostly back together, and we'll do a test run. So if I'm not mistaken, this pretty much takes the place of everything video related. So really the repairs that we did were probably unnecessary. So some of the filter capacitors that had to do with video are probably not really that necessary once this is installed. However, there's a chance that at some point I want to remove this, and if that's the case, it should be good to go either way. So when we're done, we're going to test it both through the RF connection, and then we're going to do it obviously through our new connection there. So all in all, if this works, oh, there was one thing that we did not do. We have these that we have to bridge. So these are for voltage. We have PAL and NTSC over here. So what we're going to do is dab a little solder on that. We're not in the region that uses PAL, so we're going to bridge those two guys. Too much solder on there. Just like that. All right, get some rubbing alcohol. Clean up our solder joints. So what we're doing is just getting that flux off there. And that's going to do it for this portion. So we'll take an opportunity to put it all back together and see what we have. Okay, so I did go ahead and replace one of the two cartridge or the joystick connectors. I got this one out of the other machine and it is tweaked and the two tabs are broken off. So this one was definitely the worst of the two. So this is also the one that gets most of the joystick changes. This would be player one. So definitely better. Definitely went pretty smoothly. I'm sure there's a way to get these, but I think we're just going to leave it go the way it is. So let's go ahead and reassemble it. And what I'm going to do after I get it partially reassembled, I'm going to try out the RF side and see if that still works. And then once we do that, we'll put it together with the component out. I've got my little TV down here. We'll try it on that and see what it looks like. So I did get the case all cleaned up too. I'll show you that here in a second. So where are the wires going to come out? Let us see. We can do this. Is that gonna work? I do not like that. Interesting. So we have a gap in the RF cover here, but it does not look like it gives us enough room. I don't feel super comfortable putting a lot of pressure on that. What other option do we have? None. Okay. What I may end up doing is opening this side, and then I may even see if I can get a little maybe piece of isolator or rubber that we can put on that to not damage that too much. I may trim some of the tabs down here so it's not quite as jabby. I don't know what else to call it on that, but let's see here. Let's get cutting. Okay, this aluminum is pretty soft, so I'm just going to use some tin snips. Already got our leaf cut there. I'm going to cut it up a little higher. I think the more room we give that, the better. Okay, I feel a little bit better about that. Trying to think if there's a way that we could give that a little strain leaf. It should be okay. We've got plenty of room. It's not pinching or anything like that. So let's go with that. All right, let me get this situated here. Actually, that's pretty dirty inside there. That's one place I did not clean. Let's do that while we're at it. I really like rubbing alcohol as a cleaner, just in general. Dries fast, fairly gentle on most items. Just a little bit on that. Basically, we're just getting the inside of this cartridge holder, so it's not going to be too big of a deal. It's more gooder. Okay. Let's make sure we're good on the back side. Take one more look at that. It's a pretty sharp edge. I know I'm overthinking this. This probably isn't going to move around a ton. Doesn't seem to be sitting real flush, but it's all the way seated. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, I think I'm gonna let it roll. So put these screws in, I'll see if my brain can come up with an idea. Oops, that's not a screw. Okay. part back on. That is secured. Let's see if we can get this. Okay. Just a sneak peek at the case. Turned out pretty good. I will say, outside of a little wear on the orange, which is really common, it turned out pretty good. So let's set it in the case and see where our wire ends up. Shot of my arm. This up twisted. That looks pretty good. I think I would love to get this around the strain relief. Gotta shorten our cord quite a bit though. What can we do to secure this? We may interesting. What I may do is once I get the wires through, I don't know if you can see there's a nub there. I wonder if I can get a zip tie on that to securely hold that. So I think that's what we're going to do. Before I do anything, I'm going to screw this into the back of the case. I'm going to go hook it up to my VCR up in the living room and make sure the RF side works before we go any further, because we have done quite a bit of work to it, so we want to verify that. There was one little thing that I had a bit of a question about, and I followed my gut. So we'll see if that's a good thing. There was one capacitor that I could have sworn was opposite of the way I thought it came out. The ground side looked like it was not going to the ground strap. There's a ground pad that most of the components use, a common ground. And the video I watched had that being the ground. Logic tells me that's what the ground was, but I could have sworn when I pulled it out that it wasn't the ground. So I went with my gut and went ahead and put the ground where it looks like it should go. So I think it's actually that guy right there. So we're putting a radial capacitor in a spot where the axial capacitor would go. And there's no silk screen on that one. Once again, it's not that big of a deal, but as we talked about before, it's always good to notice where the negative sign is pointing to, because sometimes the silk screen and markings on the board can be incorrect. So we'll see. So what I'm going to do is do that now. I'm not going to take you guys with me on that one necessarily, but we'll do a test run, see what we got. Okay. So I did check it out with the RF cable. It works just fine. So one of my questions was whether or not you could have that board installed and run it as a normal Atari, and it does look like you can. So that's pretty awesome. Picture looked great. Everything seemed to be just fine. So we got it hooked up to my classic monitor. This is going to be a challenge just because of the refresh rate here. So hopefully this will go well. But we'll give her a shot. So don't mind that screwdriver holding the power button. That, just pretend you didn't see that. Look at that. That is that's pretty crystal clear. Just checking some of the switches and all that stuff. Okay. Got the joystick. Let's try the black and white and see what happens. That works on. Notice black and white doesn't change every game, but let's give it a shot. Oh, that was quick. I'm playing this in one hand, so you're gonna have to forgive me. This is hard with a joystick in one hand. So let's just take a minute to see the quality of the video. Once again, I'm not sure what you guys are going to be able to see with the resolution. Just viewing it looks really good. I don't think I've ever seen an Atari with that clarity. That is super nice. I'm going to go find some other cartridges and try some different stuff. So stand by. I'm going to set this up on a tripod too, so maybe I can play some stuff. Okay. Let's play Pac-Man. Classic. I mean, this is a good way to really see the detail of the video output here. Just checking the selector switch. This should work on black and white. Oops. Ooh, that's a little loud. Sometimes like this, you wish you had a pause button. Hey, turn that down. There we go. Ooh. Here, ghosty, 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 ghosty. Uh-oh. Oh ho ho. All right. Okay, good enough. Let's move on to Pitfall 2. Fan favorite. Sometimes these Activision games just do not do well. Okay. Let's come back to that. Now, let's see if this one works. This is Journey Escape. I'll definitely turn that down a bit. So I think this is, I'm pretty sure this is one of the first games to have some kind of a music deal. And Journey was, you know, back in the, this game probably came out in the late 70s, early 80s, so Journey was hot, so. If I remember how to play this. Oops, definitely don't want to touch that. Oh boy. Some things that you can touch, I can't remember what it is. It has been a long time. It almost makes you want to take an ice pick to your ear after hearing that over and over again. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I failed. Okay. I'm going to try to clean the Pitfall game with a little alcohol and a cotton swab. Let's see if we can get that going. Pitfall 2, it's a pretty cool game. I'm amazed at how fun these games are. It's one of those things where you would think that such a simple 8-bit game would be kind of boring, and some of this stuff is pretty engaging. And some of these are terrible. Let's just be honest. Oh boy. We're getting there. A little better. There we go. Yeah, Activision games do not have any protection for the stuff on the inside. That is absolutely beautiful as far as that resolution and cleanness and everything that we're getting out of that. That's pretty awesome. Okay. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but classic. Ooh. Oh, electric eels. Look out. Ooh. Let's get the gold. Up. So one of the things that really builds character is when you die in this game, you go all the way to the back. Or all the way back to the beginning, which is absolutely no fun. Let's try this again. Let's try to go this way, see what happens. Oh, Okay. Ain't no jumping that rat. Try one more time. Okay. Here we go. No gold. Whee! All right, let's see if I can get over this scorpion again. Oh, more gold. Oh. Okay. I think that's a stopping point. So if I do goof up again, I can come back to that one spot. Let's go this way. More gold. Oh! Okay, I'm done. Well, I'm happy with that. That really turned out well. So let's go ahead and get it all reassembled, and we'll wrap it up. Okay, I did manage to do some strain relief. So there's a standoff right here. That screw comes in from the backside. So I have the cable coming out and around that, and then exiting right there. So I think we'll probably be okay. Let me see if I have a zip tie that we can use on that. See if I have a small one. Zip ties are the most important thing that you can have in your toolbox. They pretty much fix everything. Super, super handy. Okay, there's a post right down here. So I'm gonna see if I can't get around the cable and the post. If I can pull it together tight, I think that's gonna definitely help. Easier said than done. There's a good chance that that kind of gets pushed back in there, it's going to pop off, but it'll make me feel a bit better in the meantime. I might have another possible solution. Right along here is another part of the strain relief of the I know I'm overthinking this, but this is something I can see as being a potential issue in the future. So we can't get that. pull tight as I can. I think we'll be all right. I think I feel good about that. So take our flush cuts, cut that off. Okay, so I got the rubber ice or covers, whatever you want to call them, back on there. Just like that. There we go. One thing I've definitely noticed about working on stuff that's older, you can definitely tell if something was in a house that had a smoker. I know it's that's something we think about much anymore. This, for example, I do believe was in the house of a smoker, because there is quite a bit of yellowing on the tag there. Now the good thing about this being black, there's no real need to do any retrobrite or anything like that. Retrobrite is a process where you can bring yellowed plastics back. There's quite a few different methods out there. I've done it quite a bit on some phones and all that as well. It does work pretty well. That might be something we go over in some future video. So, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Guess What Day It Is. Thanks for coming along on this journey. So just a little bit of a recap. Retro 6, check them out. Like I said, they do other stuff, even some newer consoles with some replacement screens. And super happy with the type of work that they do too. Very clean install. This definitely fits into that not rigging category for me. It's still functional in its original form, which I really like. And if I ever want to put it back to its original state, that's a very easy thing to do. Just unsolder the board and it's good to go. So yeah, there we go. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.